Welcome, early birds. Since Facebook is giving us some trouble, I went on real early. So about 35 seconds, we'll start the program. Cheers. It's espresso. Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here in northeast of the United States. This is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey, under the directions of both Chobje Ling Rinpoche and the immediate direction of Rato Kempo Nicholas Vreeland, Geshe Nicholas Vreeland. This is our twice weekly Buddha Dharma presentation, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, the Lamrim Chenmo Lama Tsong-kha-pa. In fact, also the medium Lamrim tonight. More about that later. Any problems with the broadcast, sound, light, etc., please let me or Mr. Darren Smith know at once. Anyone for whom you wish us to pray for, please put their names in the chat box or comment section, whatever you call it. All the prayers that we say are on the Tibet Center's website, thetibetcenter.org. Go to the FAQ section and scroll down to prayers. So we have a variety of stuff tonight. So we'll start right away so we don't waste your time and you don't get tempted to send out for pizza and Haagen-Dazs and whatever else you eat. Prayer for the spread of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase, like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the Victorious One's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva, should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva, mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Refuge and Bodhisattva vow, which, as you know, we say 3 times. Let me move this back a little so I don't pop off the screen. The mic is close, so I don't have to get near the screen anymore. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjagosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. And now, as usual, we say, as a cause for the quick return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, His Holiness composed this prayer, a prayer for a swift return, on the website, of course. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tubuang, Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the victor Lozang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet, you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Lozang Tenpei. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, and Sri Mata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. Let's see. Okay, first of all, just general behavioral advice from Zigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. We've had him before. This is his comments called Peaceful Heart. What it is a comment on the 6th chapter of Shantadeva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. The patience chapter, the all-powerful patience chapter, which everyone turns to when they freak out, including me. Everyone who knows about it. This is comment that's specifically, he's commenting on verse 76. And the title of the chapter, which is page 131 of this nice book here, Working with Jealousy. Ah, that thing, yeah. Nothing like it to make you irritated, annoyed, and feeling like crap. Let's be honest. We're not happy with jealousy. Maybe a little attachment, happy with attachment, yeah, we like that. We're not happy with anger, we're not happy with jealousy. So, the verse that he's commenting on, and he goes a little bit of around the block with it, and using different terms we're not familiar with, Midze Wei and Timok, we can get by that. The verse states, when others take delight in giving praise to those endowed with talents, why, O mind, do you find the joy likewise in praising them? How come you're not happy about it and you're sort of envious? And that you know what I mean. I don't have to elaborate. Let him comment. With this verse, Shantideva begins to explore another form of Yi Midway Ze. I don't know that translation in Tibetan. We'll leave it alone. He's saying it's the disturbance we feel when our adversaries, rivals, or those we simply do not like get what they want. All right, now we know what he's talking about. In this section, he takes a look at the emotion of jealousy, jalouse. The language of Buddhism classifies the primary disturbing emotions as the 5 poisons, or kleshas, a word that comes from Sanskrit. These are attachment, aggression, pride, jealousy, and timuk. I take timuk as evidence as ignorance, but let's see what he says. The last word, timuk, is often translated from Tibetan as ignorance or stupidity, but the literal meaning is deep mental fog. All right. This fog is the root of our suffering, and it's ignorance, in other words, and the starting point of the misunderstanding already referred to, that we have a singular, unchanging, autonomous self. We all think, and that's what we're working on in this inside chapter, do we have a unitary, autonomous, rock-solid self that we protect and we pamper? Timuk, or this, prevents us, or ignorance prevents us from seeing through the delusion that propels us to cling to this self. Then, because we habitually believe in and cling to this projection of an intrinsic self, being specific, we feel compelled to cherish and protect it at all times. In this way, Timuk is the source of the other 4 poisons. Our foggy confusion around this sense of self is what leads to all our painful states of mind and emotion. From those come all our activities that harm us and others, keeping us bound within samsara. This is the basic formula that describes the deluded mind of beings in samsara. So the basic ignorance that ruins everything. So at least we've identified the target. And now the various techniques are applied. So attachment, he goes around the block now, but talks about it. Attachment comes from cherishing this sense of self. We become attached to objects, people, things, conditions that we think will make the self happy. And we work hard to pull these things closer. We become aggressive to protect this sense of self when we sense it is threatened or when anything hinders our attachments being met. I gotta have that car or whatever. Okay. We work hard to push these people, things, and conditions away, the ones that are obstacles on our path to getting what we want, he means. Okay, he continues. The pain of attachment and aggression is basically the pain of not getting what we want and the pain of getting what we don't want. Pride or our arrogance is an extension of attachment. This is interesting, good psychology. Pride or arrogance is an extension of attachment because it is a more developed form of self-cherishing. Similarly, jealousy is an extension of aggression. We are protecting ourselves against the feeling that others are doing as well as or better than we are. We wish that that was not the case. Ooh. See if you can identify this almost visceral pull and push with things. So that's our homework. Notice when you try to pull things that you think support your sense of self and push away things that threaten you. Notice that. What am I doing here? Start with small things to see if you can identify these tendencies. Then further challenge yourself to notice what's happening when you are upset about something. Take a pause in the storylines and reflect. Ask yourself if you are trying to cherish or protect your sense of self. Is that urge mixed in with all your thoughts and feelings? He doesn't answer, you find it. Yeah. So it's very simple. You don't need a special yogic state to accomplish this. If you can simply notice and identify which tendency has been activated, without any judgment of yourself, you may find a great sense of relief. Just seeing it and being able to take a breath and let go of it will soothe your mind. You will likely find yourself with a clearer head, able to sort out how best to remedy the situation at hand. And he finishes this paragraph with this very, very good piece of advice. Anytime you are engaged in neurotic self-protection, you have a chance to apply patience, which can open up a treasure trove of wisdom inside you. Basically, we have it. Open it up. Don't cover it up with all these. There it is. Take a break. Breathe in. Breathe down into your Buddha nature. In this light, Shantideva now begins to discuss patience as an antidote to jealousy. Why do people praise each other? Generally, praise is an expression of inspiration, connection, and joy. We see an action or a quality that we appreciate, and we show our appreciation to the person who performs that action or possesses that quality through some form of praise. We clap our hands, we pat on the back. It gives us a feeling of pleasure to acknowledge another person who touches us in this way. So Shantideva is asking here, when you see that happening with others, why not join in with their pleasure? The thing they call sharing their joy. Why not? Rinpoche continues, why not enjoy the positive emotion of the one who is praising? The person praising, too. That's a feeling, yay. If you have trouble joining in fully because you don't believe in the praise, that's all right. But in that case, you can at least not get irritated. If you do get irritated, you should know that under the surface there is something extra happening inside you. There is no good reason to be offended because the praise is not directed at you. The person giving praise is not trying to insult or provoke you. It may feel that way, but some self-reflection will show that this is not the case. If you penetrate your deep mental fog, you will most likely discover that your ego is feeling a bit threatened because you are feeling ignored. They're praising him and not me. No. Oh boy. Sounds familiar. When we are jealous, as Rinpoche continues, we don't have the heart to bear any glory or appreciation unless it is related to us, the big fat me, the I or whatever. If the world showers acknowledgement on someone else, instead of joining in with the world, we make it a personal issue. Totally irrational. We make it a personal issue. Oh, that's healthy, huh? You'll have trouble sleeping that night. We think the recipient of praise doesn't deserve it. Why? If you look, you will be hard-pressed to find a rational reason. It is usually because your ego feels left out. This can happen on a very subtle level, which demands good introspection and sincerity, inner sincerity. What the hell's going on with me? Quietly. You don't have to announce to the world. Nobody wants to hear it anyway. So, important. Save us a lot of aggravation. Rinpoche continues on page 133. When you catch yourself having this attitude, it is a great opportunity to turn inward and look at the state of your heart. If you look openly, you will discover that your heart has become quite small. Unless you remedy this painful state of affairs, you will start to lose your self-respect and the respect of others, especially if you speak or act from this place of pettiness. Good time to shut up. Really. If you can't do anything else, that's it. At least start that way. Self-recognition doesn't have to come with critical self-judgment. Now that you're looking at it, so it doesn't have to become critical self-judgment. In other words, you don't, as the therapists say, you don't beat yourself up. Others will do that for you, so relax. No. Rinpoche says, you can have some humor about the fascinating workings of your mind. Well, sometimes. How ironic that you want others to be happy for you, but you're so unwilling to be happy for anyone else. It is very freeing to be able to admit this, that this is where you are caught at the moment. It's very freeing. It's not normally what you do, and now, oh. Sort of stepping out of the energy of the jealousy and everything, sort of with a little bit of introspection. Aha. Then you can have a good chuckle and naturally come to agree that it's really in your best interest to open your heart and join with the acknowledging of others, whatever. It's your best interest. You feel better. Or if that's not possible at the moment, why not at least let the praisers and the praised have their enjoyment without taking it so personally? Picky, petty. Yeah, you can't go through life like that. I mean, you're going to wind up, I don't know, unhappy at least. I don't know what else. So the technique, of course, as in all Buddhism, look in. What's going on? What's going on in my mind? We paint over that all the time, all of our faults. We're very good at that. We got to stop doing that, and we'll improve, and then we'll feel better. People will praise you. That's what you want, isn't it? Yeah. Become worthy of praise. Now, what time is it? 20 minutes, okay. A little bit of the quantum physics view of emptiness. We're pulling out all the stops in our quest to understand emptiness and to change our minds for the best. Not the better, the best. In other words, our Buddha nature, so that we can help others. That's all. So this is one of my favorite books, The Quantum and the Lotus. The Buddhist monk Matthew Ricard, I can't pronounce. Wonderful human being. This was written around the year 2000, originally in French. The translation is superb, because I can understand it, so it must be good. It's a dialogue between him and the astronomer Trinh Xuan Tuan, a Vietnamese professor at Vietnamese ethnically, but he's American now, professor at University of Virginia. He's also pretty smart and you'll see from the dialogue now. This is interesting. If you're not interested, go have some ice cream or whatever, and then come back for the next section will be the LAM. Mr. Ricard starts. The title of the chapter is Each to His Own Reality. Buddhism, in the introduction to it, says, Buddhism contends if we want to grasp the true nature of reality, we must engage more fully with the philosophical conundrums that quantum physics has revealed. What are they? We'll let you know. Matthew says, most people think that in order to explain the coherence of the phenomenal appearance, he says the phenomenal appearance, it is necessary to postulate a wholly independent extramental world which underpins appearance. In other words, we see these things as solid world underneath there. To assume a substrate beneath appearance may seem rational, but it mostly rests upon an ingrained and unexamined habit that is not only a fundamental misapprehension of reality, but also is the source of frustration and misery. That's what that misapprehension does. Well, we don't want that. Even though quantum mechanics refutes the existence of a, quote, true reality existing on its own out there, some scientists continue stubbornly to look for it, no doubt because of their cultural conditioning. This is very different from Buddhism. Many of the paradoxes of quantum mechanics result from the fact that we are constantly trying to force it into the view of reality established by Western philosophy. As W.H. Zurek wrote, the only failure of quantum theory is its inability to provide a natural framework for our prejudices. It's confronting them. Buddhism's vision of the world is a middle way between solid reality and nothingness. This conception of the world resolves many of the paradoxes of contemporary physics. It thus offers a coherent framework for thought and action in the modern world. Tuan weighs in. He says scientists carry out their work in a specific social and cultural context. Very good. Even if they are reticent to admit it, they can't help sharing, consciously or unconsciously, the metaphysical prejudices of the society in which they live. It's true that Western science has been dominated by a metaphysical vision of a solid, reified reality. No connection to us out there, that's it. Of course, there's alienation, then it's built in. He continues, I don't think it's any coincidence that the founding fathers of quantum physics, such as Bohr and Schrödinger, argued for a marriage between Western scientific thinking and Eastern philosophy. In Eastern thought, they saw a possible way out from the numerous paradoxes that quantum mechanics produces when understood from a Western point of view. In Heisenberg's opinion, the great scientific contribution in theoretical physics that has come from Japan since the last war may be an indication for a certain relationship between philosophical ideas and the tradition of the Far East and the philosophical substance of quantum theory. In other words, they have a good mindset to accept it because they're operating out of the model the Western philosophy has of a solid, non-connected reality, objective out there, objective of the observer. Whereas in quantums, they discovered the observer as part of the action. You know? It may be easier to adapt oneself to the quantum theoretical approach of reality when one has not gone through the naive materialistic way of thinking that still prevailed in Europe in the first decades of this century. And Bohr, these are all Europeans by then, Bohr went on, for a parallel to the lesson of atomic theory, we must in fact turn to quite other branches of science, such as psychology, or even to that kind of epistemological problems in which already thinkers like Buddha and Lao Tse have been confronted when trying to harmonize our position as spectator and actor in the great drama of existence. Are we just spectators or are we actors? Survey says, in the East, we're actors. Anyway, not many physicists, however, have concerned themselves with the philosophical consequences of quantum mechanics. To most researchers, quantum mechanics is simply a theory that works particularly well. It's an unrivaled way to describe the way matter behaves on a subatomic level and how it interacts with light. Quantum mechanics is also considered a useful tool that allows us to make transistors, lasers, chips, computers, and other even, excuse me, sorry, and even more other sophisticated instruments that have modified and will continue to radically change our way of life. It works. They make things with it. It works, you know. Most researchers go no further than that and don't bother about the philosophical implications of their science. Matthew retorts, I recently jotted down some comments made by the physicist Jean-Marc Lévy-Leblanc, which confirm what you say. And Jean-Marc Lévy says, there should be no misunderstanding about the wide-ranging agreement between physics about most of their theories, from cosmology to particle physics, passing by statistical mechanics. This just concerns the theoretical mechanism, that is to say, the various mathematical forms that are used to describe our experience of the world and the calculation methods which allow us to produce explanations or predictions based on our observation. But this consensus leaves open a whole series of questions about how to interpret these theories and the meaning of our concepts. Behind the scientific community's unified facade are deep intellectual divergences, which are all the more important given that they are rarely expressed. They have a hint, okay, that they're not onto things as much as they were. That's the way I take it. Maybe that's not a conclusion that's applicable. Make your own choice. This range of conceptions is generally masked by the indifference or the caution that most researchers display about anything that lies outside their field of specialized study. You like the safe ground, don't you? Especially when you're going for tenure. The Zhuan replies, this is definitely not a healthy situation. While quantum mechanics is well advanced when it comes to explaining the behavior of matter, the exposition of its philosophical basis has hardly progressed. That said, a handful of physicists have made philosophical conjectures. For example, Bernard Espagnat and Michel Bitbol. Michel Bitbol appears on a lot of His Holiness's Mind and Life conferences. He's very interesting. He's the one that thought when he was a kid the moon was following him. Sweet guy. In order to explain certain strange aspects of quantum mechanics, such as non-separability, which came up when we were discussing the EPR experiment. That's what Einstein, Podolsky, and somebody else, I forgot, in the old days. We don't have to get into that. I'll skip. Speaking of materialism, he goes on, Heisenberg wrote, one was led to the tacit assumption that there existed an objective course of events in space and time, independent of observation. Further, that space and time were categories of classification of all events, completely independent of each other, and thus represented an objective reality, which was the same to all men, or humans now they would say. So there it is, the hard reality that nobody takes part in, that we all created it. So we could start with that premise from the Buddha's point of view. All right, Matthew replies, the idea that there's an inherent substratum that exists beneath the veil of our perceptions has been much discussed in Buddhist philosophy. They have concluded that our concepts can't deal with reality, since it's neither inherently existent nor non-existent, just what we're studying now. The true nature of reality necessarily escapes ordinary intellects. So we have to use a different tool to understand. We're stuck. Looks like a koan. So this does not exclude, however, achieving a correct understanding of reality. It can be done as the union of appearances and emptiness in an experiential way that transcends the ordinary conceptual mind. In any case, one cannot conclude that there is a solid reality simply because we constantly observe its apparent properties. We think that's what we see. Big points that are echoed in our studies now. I won't go on about neurobiology and all this. I'll leave it at that. We'll pick it up next week. It's a little bit more. But this book is very valuable if you are of the bent that wants to see what's going on in science and how it's a journey to the frontiers where science and Buddhism meet. The frontiers, yes, the Old West. No, the Old East. So two things we're doing now. I'm introducing this. We're on the chapter called Dependent Arising and the arguments back and forth, which we'll get into. This is the medium-length Lamrim. Very good translation. The middle-length treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Tsong-kha-pa. After he wrote the Lamrim Chenmo, which finished in 1402, he wrote this before he died, 1418, or he died in 19. The last Lamrim that he wrote. And what he did was digest everything. It wasn't that some agent said, we can't sell 3 volumes. Why don't you condense it down to 1 and we maybe get a movie deal? No. He didn't do that. It's more clear. The translation is very good. And it sort of has an expanded insight section. The insight section has got a few little things in it, and that's what we're studying now. Other than that, it's a nice introduction if you want to take the time and get it. It's available everywhere. So what is it, Wisdom? Yeah, Wisdom publication. So you get it at Amazon, you get it everywhere. If you're interested. If you're not interested, just listen here and you don't have to do anything. This section is entitled The Logical Proof of Dependent Arising, page 368. Tsong-kha-pa starts, with regard to the logical proof of dependent arisings, the questions of Surangamati Sutra Sagaramati Sutra says, those that originate interdependently, not interdependently, do not exist by way of their nature. Inherent establishment, Tsong-kha-pa says, is clearly refuted with the reason of dependent arisings. And now he brings more evidence to court. The questions of Naga King Anavaptapta Sutra also clearly says, whatever is born from conditions is not born. Now he's going to qualify is not born. What do you mean is not born? Shut up. Whatever is born from conditions is not born. It is not born by way of its intrinsic nature. Whatever depends on conditions is said to be empty. Whoever has realized emptiness is heedful. Tsong-kha-pa says now, this is said very frequently in the precious scriptures. The meaning of what the first line refers to as not born is explained by the second line, not born by way of its intrinsic nature, a qualified not, okay? Therefore, in the refutation of birth, the object of negation is qualified, not born, a qualified not born, not the everyday supermarket not born, all right? So continue with your maternity gifts and everything. He now quotes the same sutra, thinking that they are not born inherently, I said all phenomena are unborn. That's the Buddha saying. I said that, not born inherently. Buddha says, thinking that they are not born inherently, that was my mindset. I said all phenomena are unborn. But, you have to add inherent, right? Not hard. That principle applies up and down all these Prajnaparamita texts. So we have to get used to it. Tsong-kha-pa goes on page 368. The teacher himself addressed the intention of the sutras by explaining their meaning to be the non-existence of inherent birth, out of concern that without such a qualification, his statements that birth does not exist would be interpreted as meaning that all birth whatsoever is non-existent. Immediately they jump on the wrong bandwagon. They took the wrong bus. Then the third line says that dependence and reliance on conditions is the meaning of being empty of establishment by way of one's intrinsic nature. Dependence and reliance on conditions is the meaning of being empty of establishment by way of one's intrinsic nature. This teaches that emptiness of inherent establishment is the meaning of dependent arising, whereas an emptiness of performing functions which would negate mere birth is not. So that's why they feel, oh, well, if things aren't intrinsic existent, they can't function. And you've got the wrong idea. Here's how he's trying to straighten out that idea. The root text of wisdom, the root text on wisdom says, that which arises in dependence is free of intrinsic nature. That's easy to remember for ourselves. What? 10 words, something like that. That which arises in dependence is free of intrinsic nature. So we have to wrap our minds around intrinsic dependence. That's easy to understand. And we all heard it now, so it's going deep in our consciousnesses. I don't know, some lives later it'll come up and you'll, the Tibetan, that's where I heard this. Because, Tsong-kha-pa continues on page 369, because it arises dependently, it is pacified or empty of establishment by way of its nature. It's pacified. They use that word pacified, but I mean it doesn't have intrinsic. Why? There's no reason to get excited about it. It's not inherent. Because it arises dependently, it is pacified or empty of establishment by way of its nature. Whatever obscure fabrications have been propounded, that because of dependent arising itself, the Madhyamaka system must propound non-arising and so forth, are thereby cleared away. The logical proof of dependent arising is like that, and it's praised very much. The question of the Naga King and of Atapta Sutra says, experts see that phenomena arise in dependence and do not rely at all on extreme views. So we have to parse dependence, or figure, expand that on what? Most subtly, the designating consciousness, but on parts and whole, and dependent on, for physical things, impermanent things, physical causes. So the mental thoughts cause another thought, etc. So there's three types of dependence. Why do they keep talking like this? Because we assume that's not the case. We assume that everything's there and we're battling against it. In realizing dependent arising as it is, one does not depend on views holding to extremes, in other words, nihilism or eternalism. The meaning of this is set forth in entering the middle way. Since things arise utterly through dependence, these conceptions cannot withstand analysis. Thus, this reasoning of dependent arising sheds the net of all bad views. So remember that which arises in dependence is free of intrinsic nature. That should get rid of all bad views. You're done. Graduation tomorrow. No. This is the unextolled distinctive feature of Mahatma Nagarjuna, the father, and his spiritual son Aryadeva. That is why, from among various reasonings, I will explain that of dependent arising here. Here, there are two main mistakes that obstruct pure view. The first is the view of permanence and superimposition that has as its referent object the apprehension of true existence. That is, it apprehends phenomena as truly existent. That's all. Very clear the way he really distilled the argument. The second is the view of annihilation and denial, in which the scope of the object of negation is not delimited and becomes excessive. Nothing exists. Yeah, get out of here. That's what you Madhyamikas say, but things must intrinsically exist because things work. That's the argument against it. So, which we'll go on and on with that. So I bet you can't wait. This makes it impossible to induce the ascertainment of dependently arising causes and effects in one's own system. There is no way of identifying that something is this and not that. So, when inherent establishment is negated with a logical proof inducing the ascertainment that from such and such causes and conditions such and such effects arise, these two mistakes are abandoned without remainder. That's the key. You got dependence? Okay, you're good. This is because through ascertaining the logical proof, the view of annihilation is radically negated. And through ascertaining the meaning of the thesis, the view of permanence is negated. Therefore, and he'll explain, external things such as sprouts and internal things such as karmic formations originate depending respectively on seeds and so forth, and on ignorance and so forth. The external, internal, all right, they arise dependently. If that is so, then establishment through their intrinsic characteristics is illogical. No, it came up dependent. We could see this. For if they were established through their intrinsic natures, they would necessarily be established for themselves through their own powered, self-sustaining inherent existence. So this would contradict their being dependent on causes and conditions. You can't. If you're dependent on causes and conditions, that's it. Case closed. You can't be intrinsically existent. And what doesn't depend on causes and conditions? Look around. Here's the guidebook. Start looking. The 400 stanzas, that's Aryadeva. Its English title, it used to be Yogic Deeds of the Bodhisattvas. I think they gave it a more accurate title now, so who knows. But it's a seminal text. Get your hands on 400 stanzas of Aryadeva. And he says, that which has a dependent origin does not exist autonomously. We can figure that. All these are not autonomous. Hence, they do not have a self. So that's what they mean by self in this context. Not, how you doing? Not bad. Yourself? No. In this context, self implies inherent existence. Through this, you should understand that since persons and pots and the like are also imputed in reliance upon their own collection of parts, they do not have inherent establishment. Those are the two presentations of the logical proof of dependent arising. If something arises dependently, Tsong-kha-pa goes on, and is imputed dependently, it does not exist as something established by way of its intrinsic nature as one with whatever it depends on. If it did exist as one, all actions and agents would be one. Can't. The two are also not established by way of their natures as different, because if they were, one could refute their relation, and this would contradict their being dependent. Hard to understand this now. You reread it a few times, you hear it, go to lectures. We'll flesh this out in the coming section, chapter 11. So the root text on wisdom, again, whatever arises dependent on something is not identical with that thing, but neither is it different from it. Hence, it is neither annihilated nor eternal. They turn that reasoning right into what it's supposed to do. And praise of the world transcending one, the Lokatita says, Lokatita, yes, it's a bakery, no. Logicians claim that suffering is created by itself, by other, by both itself and other, or without any cause. You said it arises dependently. That which arises dependently is asserted by you to be empty. Things do not exist independently, is your matchless lion's roar. Now that's a real roar. The lion showed up. Yeah, that which arises dependently is asserted by you to be empty. In other words, Buddha, you Buddha. Things do not exist independently, is your matchless lion's roar. The logical proof of dependent arising is thus said to refute the apprehension of oneness and difference, the extremes of eternalism and annihilation, and the four extremes of origination, self, other, both, or none. That on and on. Having thus induced certainty through the emptiness that is empty of all referent objects for apprehending signs, technical talk now, don't get into that. One does not eliminate one's ascertainment of the relation between actions and their effects. Discarding non-virtues and adopting virtues while relying on that is highly praised. Yes, they don't fall to the extremes of annihilation and no, you to practice virtue with this, there's no connection and blah, blah, blah. Of course not. That's not the case. Couldn't be farther from it and is dangerous. So we've taken enough time from the poor Lam Rim. We'll continue. But this itself is a Lam Rim. So you might want to... This is translated by Phil Kwarku and His Eminence Ling Rinpoche, our spiritual advisor, wrote the introductions. It's a new publication. A couple, when is it? 2021. So, pretty good. So, I have the old Lam Rim with Rinpoche's little notes, the one that falls apart and I can't keep the pages together, but it's got a lot of nice notes that make it easy. Chapter 11. We read the introduction last week. We'll do it again. It's 5 lines. How is it that all of chapter 11, page 135, volume 3 of the Lam Rim? So Tsong-kha-pa says, how is it that all of cyclic existence and nirvana is possible in a system that asserts emptiness? How come? Because when we hear emptiness, we think nothing. As I will explain below, this is his premise. Rinpoche has a note. Premise. Proponents of the view that all things are empty of intrinsic existence argue that this is possible by reason of things arising in dependence on causes and conditions. So the old cause and conditions speech is about ready to be restated. This being the case, he goes on in the next paragraph, dependent arising is tenable within emptiness of intrinsic existence. And when dependent arising is tenable, suffering is also tenable. We have suffering, we can vouch for that. Comes from a cause. For suffering may be attributed only to what arises in dependence on causes and conditions. It cannot be attributed to what does not arise dependently. The average person says, well, I don't know why I got sick of that. Whether you Buddhism will now explain the whole thing, but you have to think according to the Buddhist framework here. When true suffering exists, then the origins from which it arises, its source, the cessation that is the stopping of that suffering, and the paths leading to those cessations are tenable. Thus, all 4 truths exist, the 4 Noble Truths. When the 4 truths exist, then it is possible to understand, to eliminate, and to actualize the first 3 truths respectively, and it is possible to cultivate true paths. So you have to understand the truth of suffering, eliminate its source, and actualize the cessation. And how do you do that? The path, the 4th truth. When such practices exist, then everything, the 3 jewels and so forth, is tenable. So he's going, it's so key. He's showing you how this is key to everything. As Chandra Kirti's Clear Words says, Prasanapada, I think it's called, Prasanapada in Sanskrit. For those to whom this emptiness of intrinsic existence of all things makes sense, everything that has been mentioned also makes sense. Why? And Rinpoche's note says here he posits whole path and 3 jewels on the basis of emptiness. Well, you're getting that idea. Sorry about the shaking screen. Move it back so I can fit the book over here where the light is. All right. It's great being old. I mean, really. Why? Because we call dependent arising emptiness. Okay. So you can use them now. You hear emptiness, think dependent arising. Thus, dependent arising makes sense in a system in which emptiness makes sense. And the 4 Noble Truths are reasonable for those to whom dependent arising makes sense. Why? Because only what arises dependently can be suffering, and not what does not arise dependently. Since what arises dependently lacks intrinsic nature, it is empty, and that's good news about suffering because it can be eliminated. So there's no despair. So you should think that, inculcate these ideas deep, deep down. Once there is suffering, Tsong-kha-pa goes on 136, then the origins of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the paths leading to the cessation of suffering also makes sense. Therefore, thorough understanding of suffering, elimination of origins or its cause, actualization of cessation, its ending, and cultivating of paths also makes sense. When there is thorough understanding, etc., of the truth, suffering, etc., then it makes sense that there will be spiritual results. Once there are results, then it makes sense that there are people who have achieved these results. He's establishing the Sangha. This in turn implies the possibility of people who are approaching these results. Once there are people who are approaching and achieving these results, then the community is possible. When the noble truths exist, then the sublime teaching also makes sense. And when the sublime teaching and community exist, then Buddhas are possible as well. This should eliminate your idea that I can never be a Buddha, this or that. Everything cause. Create the cause, get the result. That's it. Get the effect, if you want to use that word. Therefore, the three jewels also make sense. All profound knowledge of everything, mundane and supramundane, makes sense. Proper and improper conduct, the results of that, happy and miserable rebirths, are all worldly conventions. They make sense as well. All worldly conventions also make sense. Therefore, in that way, Nagarjuna says, for those to whom emptiness makes sense, everything makes sense. You'll hear this quote all the time. If emptiness did not make sense, then dependent arising would not exist, so nothing would make sense. Not apparent to us in an ordinary way of thinking, until we're introduced by our karma. Somehow we found the Buddha Dharma, so let's not waste it. It's amazing. So, therefore, you should understand that, quote, what makes sense and what does not make sense here refer to whether these things exist. Makes sense means it exists. Does not make sense, doesn't exist. So he's saying that you should think that way when you hear it. Therefore, I'll repeat it again. You should understand that what makes sense and what does not make sense here refer to whether things exist or not. As cited earlier, an objection by essentialists appears in Nagarjuna's refutation of objections. And this is the other side squawking now, making their point. If all things are completely without intrinsic nature, then your words also lack intrinsic nature and thus cannot refute intrinsic existence. Nah. And Rinpoche's note says here, the functionality premise. So the Master Nagarjuna clearly answers that functionality is tenable within the context of the absence of intrinsic existence. It can't be any other way. The refutation of objections, in Nagarjuna's text, we propound that the dependent arising of things is called emptiness. That which arises dependently has no intrinsic nature. And now on page 137, as I check the time, we'll have to end there. So we'll pick this up next Wednesday night, which is what? The 1st of February. Ouch. The year is marching on. So Wednesday the 1st, we'll pick up on page 137 of the LAM. Chenmo. I'm going to introduce anything else now. I'm starting to confuse the crowd. Confusing myself. Okay, let's see who we have. Doreen O'Sullivan. And the debts in Israel, Ohemsa. The debts in Palestine. Chris Cheney. Bobby Hull, yes. Hi, everyone. Bula Bula Radna. That's it. Who else? Okay, I don't have much more here. And if there are others, I don't see them. Okay, yay. All right. Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. As soon as I find the text, that will be nice, you know. That'll be hilarious. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Tathagata, thus the Buddha, the Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavatsu, who rise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavad, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the Great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. The amount of violence on our plate is insane in this world. We really need the Dharma, and we need the reappearance of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, which is why we're saying prayer for the flourishing of Tsong-kha-pa's teachings at the advice of His Holiness, as an expedient means to bring him back quicker. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When of yore in the presence of Buddha Indra Ketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view of free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverent, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for beings and the doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scripture is definitive and interpretable without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanation of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practices of the three trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he aligned without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle, with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karma Yama, May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teachings, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. So now we will do 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. So our next class is February 1st at 7 o'clock at the parsonage in South Orange. You all are invited. The directions are on our website. Thank you so much for your patient listening. I know it's a very thick topic, but very necessary to at least hear it. So, big love to all of you. Take care.